You ever had that one knock on the door that changes your entire life? That's exactly what happened to me. It wasn't a gentle tap or a friendly hello. It was 3 sharp, heavy thuds, like a judge slamming down a gavel. Boom, boom, boom! I froze. My instincts kicked in. My FBI training told me this wasn't just a neighbor dropping by. Something was off. Through the peephole, I saw them. 2 men in dark uniforms. Badges that read HOA Police. Their belts carried handcuffs, radios, and even tasers. They weren't smiling. They weren't here for small talk. Now let me pause. Most neighborhoods have an HOA, the Homeowners Association. They nag you about your lawn, your mailbox, or whether your fence is painted the right shade of beige. But this was different. These guys weren't here to fine me for grass being an inch too tall. They were here to arrest me. I opened the door slowly, masking my suspicion with a polite smile. "Good morning," I said calmly. "Can I help you?" The taller one stepped forward, clipboard in hand. His voice was stern. "Sir, under Section 14 of the HOA Compliance Code, you're under violation. You're coming with us. Violation, arrest? For what? Parking my truck in my own driveway?" I tilted my head. "And what exactly am I being arrested for?" The shorter one smirked. "Non-compliance. Multiple counts. You can fight it in the HOA court." HOA court. What a joke. Still, I played along. FBI agents are trained to assess, observe, and never show their cards too early. "All right," I said, stepping outside. "Lead the way." As they walked me toward their unmarked SUV, my mind raced. Who gave these self-proclaimed HOA police the authority to detain anyone? And why me? But here's the twist they didn't know. I wasn't just some random homeowner. I was Special Agent Daniel Cross, FBI. And if they thought I was about to roll over and let them play sheriff, they were about to learn the hardest lesson of their lives. Because I had a plan, and it started the second I got into that SUV. The door slammed shut behind me with a heavy clunk. No door handle on the inside. Classic tactic to keep someone locked in. The interior smelled faintly of old coffee and leather. But what caught my attention wasn't the smell. It was the cage-like screen between the front and back seats, separating me from the 2 men who thought they had just bagged another. "HOA criminal." The taller one, who I now mentally nicknamed Clipboard, sat in the driver's seat. Starting the engine, the shorter one, let's call him Smirk, turned slightly, watching me with amusement. His eyes said it all. He enjoyed this. Clipboard spoke first. "You'll learn quickly, sir. HOA rules aren't optional. We run a tight ship here." I leaned back, calm but calculating. "And who exactly gave you the authority to make arrests? Last I checked, HOAs could fine homeowners, not handcuff them." Smirk chuckled. "That's what everyone thinks until they cross us." He turned back around, leaving me to process. They were serious. These guys weren't bluffing. They believed in their self-made power like small-time kings of a suburban empire. But here's the thing about being FBI. I'd been trained to pick apart situations like this. Every detail mattered. Clipboard's nervous glance at the rearview mirror, Smirk's overconfidence. The fact that their SUV had no official plates, just a blank white tag. These weren't professionals. They were imposters with badges. Dangerous because they didn't know their limits. I shifted slightly, noticing a small camera suctioned to the windshield. Was this a scare tactic? Were they recording their arrest to intimidate homeowners? Or was someone else watching behind the scenes? The SUV rolled out of the neighborhood, past manicured lawns and trimmed hedges. Residents peeked out of windows whispering. To them, it probably looked like the HOA had finally caught the troublemaker. They had no idea who I really was or what was about to unfold. Finally, I spoke again, my tone steady. "You know, gentlemen, you might be making the biggest mistake of your lives." Smirk snorted. "Oh, yeah? And why's that?" I leaned forward, just enough for my voice to drop into that serious, commanding register I'd perfected during interrogations. "Because you didn't run my name before you dragged me into this car. If you had, you'd know I'm not the kind of man you can just fine or arrest." Clipboard glanced at Smirk. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. Good. The seed was planted. They had no idea they were transporting an FBI agent, and I was about to turn their entire operation upside down. The SUV rumbled along a back road, far from the neatly trimmed lawns of the neighborhood. My suspicion grew with every passing mile. This wasn't a trip to some HOA office. No, these men were taking me somewhere hidden. Somewhere they thought no one would ever find me. We finally pulled off onto a dirt road surrounded by tall pine trees. The path was narrow, almost claustrophobic, with sunlight slicing through in thin beams. After about half a mile, the trees parted to reveal a large, fenced-off compound. High metal gates creaked open as clipboard swiped a key card. Beyond the gate sat an old warehouse converted into what looked like headquarters. Spotlights, surveillance cameras, and more men in dark uniforms patrolling the grounds. This wasn't an HOA. It was a private militia disguised as one. Smirk turned with a grin. "Welcome to the Compliance Center. You'll fit right in." I didn't respond. Instead, I scanned everything: exits, cameras, guard positions, even the weapons strapped to their belts. Training taught me to memorize every detail because in a situation like this, escape was inevitable. It was just a matter of when. The SUV rolled inside and parked. 2 more guards approached, yanking open my door. "Out!" one barked. I stepped out, feigning cooperation. Clipboard handed a stack of papers to another man. "Violation, multiple non-compliances. Subject is to be processed immediately." Processed? I'd heard that word before. In FBI field work, it usually meant someone was about to disappear into a system nobody else knew existed. They marched me inside. The warehouse smelled of oil, sweat, and dust. The walls were plastered with posters listing HOA commandments, ridiculous rules, about mailbox height, grass color, and even how long curtains could stay open at night. But the tone wasn't funny. It was militant, obsessive, cult-like. At the center of the room stood a long table where a man in a pressed uniform waited. His nameplate read Chief Regulator. His cold eyes locked on me. "So," he said slowly, "this is the homeowner who thinks he's above the rules." I met his stare steady. Or maybe I just know the difference between real law and whatever this is. His lip curled. "You'll learn respect." "Everyone does eventually." I leaned forward, voice low and dangerous. "You're making a mistake. A mistake that will bring the entire federal government down on you." The room fell silent. The chief regulator smirked, clearly amused. He had no idea how close to the truth I was. They pushed me into a metal chair under a single, hanging bulb that hummed like an angry bee. The chief regulator paced, folding a leather folder as if paper could dominate the room. Men cataloged homeowners and framed infractions like trophies. The whole place felt like a courtroom and a bunker married together. "You persist," the chief said, circling. "Most cave when they see the evidence." He tapped the folder. "We have complaints, videos, photos. Your property is a public nuisance." They slid a glossy photo across the table. A teenage girl in a floral dress, blonde, nose ring, grinning with my cows in the background, posing with a phone. The image was sunlit and innocent. Someone had labeled it as harassment. "That's Karen's daughter," the chief smiled. "She claims you chased her with a manure loader and vandalized her phone. She wants charges, Karen, the HOA queen who measured hedges with the ferocity of a tax auditor. Her daughter was the perfect social weapon, young, photogenic, loud online." "You've got it wrong," I said. "She was on my land without permission. That photo doesn't make her the victim." The chief flinched. "Neighbors don't lie. They speak for the community. That was their game. One person's post became the community's truth. Narrative trumped nuance. A selfie could be transformed into evidence if no one checked the facts. I ran scenarios in my head. Maybe Karen organized this, used her daughter to manufacture spectacle, to rally support and push me out. Their motives were petty but effective: fence disputes, livestock complaints, runs-ins over late-night generator noise. Karen collected grudges. "You accuse a teenage girl?" The chief scoffed. "I'm saying context matters," I replied. "A photo proves nothing about intent. If she claims harassment, ask for footage, timestamps, witness statements. Don't accept a selfie as a conviction." The chief's gaze narrowed, but doubt had crept in. Doubt spread fast in a place built on certainty. Outside, monitors blinked with neighborhood camera feeds. Karen could be messaging allies, turning a snapshot into a movement. To beat them, I needed evidence and speed. That meant talking to neighbors, checking timestamps, and finding the camera angles that proved my side. They gave me an ultimatum: 1 week to clear my name. Fail, and the HOA would push for expulsion, loss of property rights, Penalties, social exile. It was draconian, designed to frighten. I sat forward, steady. I didn't harass anyone. I'll prove it. The chief's smile was thin. Prove it. 1 week. The cage of confidence around them had a small crack now. All it took was a careful push to split it open. I already had one lead, a neighbor's nanny cam yesterday. They escorted me back to the SUV, but this time the air felt different. The guards weren't as smug. Doubt had crept into their posture, into the way they avoided my eyes. That seed I planted with the chief was starting to grow. The SUV dropped me off at my house without ceremony. No cuffs, no paperwork, just a warning. Clipboard leaned close before unlocking the door. 7 days, he muttered. Don't waste them. I stepped out, watching the vehicle rumble away. My yard looked the same, my cows grazed lazily in the field, but I could feel eyes on me. Curtains shifted. Phones pointed discreetly. The HOA's machine was in motion, fueled by Karen's narrative. I needed leverage and fast. First step, surveillance. I headed straight to my study, opened my laptop, and connected to the FBI's secure portal. With the right credentials, I could access public feeds, neighborhood cams, and metadata. Tools the HOA Police didn't even know existed. I pulled up the timestamp of the alleged incident with Karen's daughter. The photo she posted showed her posing with my cows around. 4:12 p.m., but a nanny cam from my neighbor's porch told a different story. At 4:12, I wasn't anywhere near the field. I was unloading feed bags from my truck on the opposite side of the property. Proof, hard, indisputable proof. But before I could save the footage, a new alert flashed on my screen. Unauthorized access detected. My blood ran cold. Someone was monitoring me. Not the FBI, not local police. The HOA network. They were watching me watch them. I slammed the laptop shut, grabbed my jacket, and slipped outside. If I was being tracked digitally, I needed to move analog, old school. Paper, photos, witnesses. The kind of evidence that couldn't be hacked or erased. I started with Mr. Henderson, my quiet neighbor across the street. He answered the door, nervous. They told us not to talk to you, he whispered. Who's they? I asked. He glanced at the HOA patrol car idling down the street. Karen, the chief, everyone. Fear. That's how they controlled this neighborhood. Not rules. Not laws, fear. I handed him my card, flipping it just enough so the gold letters gleamed. FBI. Mr. Henderson, you saw me yesterday, didn't you? Around 4 o'clock? Relief washed over his face like he'd been waiting for permission to tell the truth. Yes, you were carrying feed bags. I saw it. My camera saw it too. Bingo. Witness confirmation and another recording. The first crack in Karen's perfect story. But if I had evidence, it meant the HOA would come harder, faster, dirtier. They weren't going to play fair anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house, every flash of a car's headlights outside made my instincts flare. HOA patrol cars rolled by in slow loops, their lights off like sharks circling. On my desk lay 2 USB drives, one with Henderson's nanny cam footage, the other with my own time-stamped videos. Together they could dismantle Karen's narrative. But only if I could present them before the HOA court twisted the facts again. At 6 a.m., I left the house on foot. No electronics, no car, just a plane. Notebook and a disposable camera. Old school. I walked the perimeter of my property, noting cameras hidden in trees. Strange tire tracks near the fence. Even a small drone perched on a branch like a sleeping bird. They were monitoring every move I made. By 8 a.m., Henderson called. His voice was shaky. They came to my door, he whispered. Told me my membership privileges could be suspended if I help you. Typical intimidation. What did you tell them? I asked. That I wasn't home. Smart man. But they wouldn't stop there. I decided to move first. I arranged a meeting at the local diner with another neighbor, Mrs. Patel, someone Karen couldn't easily bully. She arrived wearing sunglasses and a headscarf. Like she was walking into a spy movie. They're calling it a community safety trial, she told me over coffee. Karen's going door to door, saying you threatened her daughter with farm equipment. People are scared. They're signing petitions. I nodded, jotting notes. Did you see anything that day? Yes, from my kitchen window. Her daughter was on your land. You were nowhere near her. I'll testify. 2 witnesses. 2 angles of video. The net Karen threw around me was starting to fray. Then Mrs. Patel slid me an envelope. You need to see this. Inside were photocopies of HOA meeting minutes, secret meetings. The last entry was chilling. If subject resists, escalate to full compliance. Use regulator authority. Full compliance wasn't a fine or a warning. It was their code for removal, permanent removal. I left the diner heart pounding. The HOA wasn't just petty. They were organized, well-funded, and willing to cross lines no neighborhood group should. Back at my house, a black SUV I didn't recognize was parked across the street. 2 men inside, not HOA uniforms this time. Dark suits, sunglasses. Federal, private, or Karen's next escalation? Either way, the countdown had begun. I wasn't just going to defend myself anymore. I was going to dismantle their entire operation. The black SUV sat there like a predator, engine idling, tinted windows hiding whoever was inside. I stayed in the shadow of my porch watching. If they were federal, they'd approach openly. If they were HOA muscled, they'd wait for me to make the first move. Either way, I couldn't let them think I was rattled. I walked calmly to my mailbox, pretending to check mail, and snapped a quick photo of the SUV with my disposable camera. No electronics, no digital trace. Old school meant no hackable trail. Inside, I spread my evidence on the table like pieces of a puzzle. Witness statements, Henderson's footage, Mrs. Patel's testimony, the secret HOA minutes. A clear picture was forming. Karen's daughter's selfie was a staged trap. The manure loader. Story was a fabricated incident meant to paint me as a threat and justify. Full compliance. They wanted me out not because of grass or fences, but because I was untouchable. FBI credentials meant I could see their whole operation. They needed me silenced. I opened my briefcase and retrieved a small black flip. Phone. The kind the Bureau issues for deep cover. No GPS, no apps. I dialed a secure number. "Cross here?" I said when the operator answered. "Need a rapid background check. HOA President Karen Wexler, and check for any LLCs tied to her name." While waiting for the call back, I loaded the evidence into a physical folder. If they came for me tonight, I could slip it to Henderson or Patel. They'd know where to take it. 10 minutes later, the phone buzzed. "Cross," the voice said. "Karen Wexler is linked to 3 shell companies. One of them, Wexler Community Solutions LLC, funnels money into private security contracts. Big ones. Bingo. That's how she built her. HOA Police. It wasn't a volunteer group, it was a private army funded by homeowners' fees. I thanked the operator, shut the phone, and exhaled. Game on. Outside, the black SUV started to roll forward. It stopped at the edge of my driveway. The passenger window slid down just enough for a voice to carry. "7 days are over," the man said. "The regulator wants you tonight." I smiled coldly. "Tell the regulator I'm ready." Because I'd gathered the evidence, mapped the compound, and now had the financial trail. Tonight, their trial would become my sting operation. They thought they were dragging me into a courtroom. They were actually walking straight into an FBI takedown. The SUV escorted me back to the compound under cover of night. Floodlights sliced through the darkness as the gates clanged shut behind us. This time, the place buzzed with energy. More guards. More vehicles, more eyes watching. The whole neighborhood machine had converged here for what they called a trial. Inside, the warehouse had been transformed. Folding chairs lined the concrete floor, filled with homeowners whispering nervously. A makeshift stage had been built with the HOA seal draped like a banner of conquest. At the center stood a long table where the chief regulator presided. Flanked by Karen herself, smug as a queen. Her daughter sat nearby, clutching her phone like it was Exhibit A. Clipboard and smirk dragged me forward, forcing me into the spotlight. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people looked curious, others hostile, and a few, like Henderson and Mrs. Patel, met my eyes with quiet solidarity. The chief raised his hand for silence. "Tonight we decide if Daniel Cross is fit to remain a member of this community. He stands accused of harassment, threats, and endangering a minor. The evidence will be presented. The community will judge." Karen leaned into the microphone, her voice sugary but venomous. My daughter just wanted to enjoy the beauty of this neighborhood. Instead, she was chased by this maniac with a manure loader. He terrified her. "He doesn't belong here." Gasps, murmurs, a mother playing her part well. Then the daughter held up her selfie, projecting it on a screen behind her, her smiling with my cows. my barn in the background. Out of context, it looked harmless, until you heard Karen's narration twisting it into menace. I stood slowly, my voice cutting through the noise. Interesting photo. But let's talk about timelines. From my folder, I produced a still image. Henderson's nanny cam footage with the timestamp visible. There I was, unloading feed bags at the exact time of the alleged harassment. The room stirred. The chief frowned. Karen's smile faltered. And here, I continued, pulling another sheet, Mrs. Patel's sworn statement. She saw Karen's daughter trespassing on my land while I wasn't even near the field. Mrs. Patel stood from her chair, firm. That's true. I saw it with my own eyes. Whispers grew louder, uncertainty spreading like cracks in glass. But I wasn't finished. I pulled the final card, a printout of the HOA's own secret meeting minutes. And if this trial is really about community safety, then explain this. Your plan to escalate me to full compliance, which, according to your own words, means removal. Permanent removal. The crowd erupted. People looked horrified. The illusion of justice was crumbling right in front of them. Karen's face went pale. The chief regulator's hand twitched. They realized, too late, their courtroom had just become my evidence room. The warehouse was chaos. Homeowners shouted, some demanding answers, others defending Karen. The chief regulator slammed his gavel on the table, but his authority was bleeding out with every second. "Silence!" he roared. "This proceeding is not over!" But it was. The tide had shifted. Henderson stood, holding his own USB drive high. "I have the full video," he announced. "It shows Cross working by his truck while Karen's daughter trespassed. I'll share it with everyone right now." A wave of gasps rolled through the room. Smirk tried to grab the drive, but Henderson passed it into the crowd. Neighbors began whispering, passing evidence hand to hand. The regulator's control was slipping through his fingers. Karen shot to her feet, furious. "You people don't understand. He's dangerous. He's FBI. He's—" Her words cut off as the crowd turned. Murmurs grew. FBI. That was the first time anyone, outside my confidants, had heard it. I stepped forward, shoulders squared. "She's right." The room froze. "Yes," I continued, pulling out my badge. The gold glinted under the harsh warehouse lights. "I am Special Agent Daniel Cross, FBI, and I've been investigating this so-called HOA Police for months. What you think is neighborhood compliance is actually fraud. Extortion and illegal detention. Shock. Audible gasps. Some homeowners covered their mouths, realizing they'd been pawns in Karen's game. Others looked relieved. Finally, someone was calling it out. The chief regulator's face twisted in rage. "You think flashing that badge scares me? This is our court, our rules!" I met his stare. "Not anymore." At that exact moment, the warehouse doors burst open. Tactical boots thundered in. Real law enforcement, FBI agents in body armor, stormed the compound, weapons raised. Federal agents. "Everyone stay where you are!" Clipboard and Smirk froze, hands instinctively rising. The guards around the room dropped their batons. The illusion of power evaporated in an instant. Karen stumbled backward, pale as chalk. Her daughter clutched her arm, confused, no longer smug. The chief regulator tried to bolt for the side door, but two agents tackled him hard to the ground. His gavel clattered across the concrete. I raised my voice over the commotion. "This operation is over. You're all going to face real charges now. Wire fraud, false imprisonment, impersonating officers. The list is long." For the first time, the homeowners looked free. Like chains had been cut they didn't even know they were wearing. Karen shook her head in disbelief, whispering, "This isn't how it was supposed to end." But it was, and I wasn't done yet. The regulator was dragged out in cuffs, still shouting about community sovereignty, like a fallen dictator clinging to power. Clipboard and Smirk followed, their earlier arrogance replaced by pale, silent defeat. The crowd of homeowners parted, watching as their self-proclaimed enforcers were marched into FBI vans. Karen stood frozen, trembling. Her daughter clutched her sleeve, wide-eyed. For years, Karen had ruled the neighborhood through fear, letters, fines, public shaming. But now the spell was broken. The homeowners weren't looking at her with respect anymore. They were looking at her like a criminal. One of my fellow agents approached. "Cross, we've secured the financial records. The shell companies trace straight back to Karen Wexler. Fraudulent contracts, extortion schemes, the works. She's going down with the rest of them. Karen's lips parted, but no words came. When the cuffs clicked around her wrists, her face twisted from fury to despair. Her daughter cried out, "Mom!" But Karen only whispered, "It was supposed to be perfect." I stepped forward, my voice calm but firm. Perfect doesn't mean ruling your neighbors with fear. It doesn't mean abusing power. It means living with integrity, something you forgot a long time ago. The agents let her out. The warehouse, once a stage for intimidation, was now just an empty shell. Neighbors began murmuring, some in relief, others in guilt for playing along. Mrs. Patel approached me, eyes steady. "You saved us. But tell me, Agent Cross, what happens now?" "Now," I said, "this neighborhood gets to breathe again. No more fake police. No more kangaroo courts. Just people living as neighbors, not subjects." Henderson clapped me on the shoulder. "Guess the lawn inspectors are out of a job." For the first time in days, I allowed myself a faint smile. Outside, dawn was breaking, the first rays of sunlight, spilling over the compound as the last HOA officers were loaded into vans. Sirens wailed in the distance, signaling the end of an era of fear. I turned to the crowd one last time. This case is closed. But let this be a reminder. Power is dangerous in the wrong hands. Always ask questions, always demand accountability, and never ever let fear dictate your life. The homeowners nodded, some even applauding softly. A community that had been divided was finally united, not by rules or intimidation, but by truth. As I walked toward my own car, I glanced back at the compound one final time. What was once a fortress of control was now just steel and concrete. And me? I was heading home to my cows, because at the end of the day, I wasn't just an FBI agent. I was a man who wanted peace, and I was finally getting it back. This was just one insane encounter, but trust me, there are even crazier stories coming soon. Like this video, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you'll be the first to see them.